Hello, I am Nicole Trevillis-Fravel, and this is Wildwood Teaching. Today, we are going to look at seeds as a loose part and how we can use seeds across the preschool curriculum. Now, it's springtime, and maybe you are doing some planting activities with your children. And these are just some ways that you can include science, math, literacy, art, fine motor, along with your seed explorations. It's important to keep in mind that although when I go over the ideas, I'm going to kind of separate them. And these are some ideas for looking at science. These are some ideas for math. Whenever you're doing activities with preschoolers, they're not going to be as finely delineated as that, right? You might be working multiple subjects at the same time. Children might take an idea, an investigation in a different direction than you originally planned. And we are just going to go with it. So just keep that in mind. I'm just separating them for us teachers to kind of have an idea when we are planning for what we're going to bring into our classroom. All right, so let's start with science. Now, I know that you have all planted a bean seed and that you all know how to put the bean seed in a plastic bag or on the side of a transparent cup so that children can witness the seed germinating, gaining roots, getting a sprout, getting leaves, and figuring out the life cycle. So I'm not going to start there. I know you already know that. What I am going to start with in terms of science is thinking about how we can go beyond that initial planting activity and turn it into an experiment rather than an observation. Now, an experiment requires variables. So all you're going to think about is how can I take that basic planting activity and add some variables to it. So children might want to think about temperature as a variable. Can you plant some seeds outside, some seeds inside? Can you put some seeds in soil in a refrigerator? Can you put some in the freezer? Can you put some under a hot sun depending on your climate? Right? And then track how long does it take for the seed to germinate? How tall does your plant eventually grow? So what are you looking at in terms of a growing condition and that effect on the seed and the eventual plant? Other ways to add variations would be the amount of water, would be the amount of light that their plants are getting. Put one in the closet, put one outside. So the other thing to kind of emphasize with young children is that you're going to change one variable at a time because that is the only way to know whether a particular variable is having the effect. Another thing that you can do, especially when you are talking about temperature and light, is use a sprouter. So my children used a sprouter a couple weeks ago when we were itching to plant, but we can't quite go into the ground yet because our soil temperatures are too cold. We talked about how this creates a greenhouse effect. It's going to trap the moisture and the heat inside. And it's great because you can't see it now, but you get the condensation bubbles on the inside of the sprouter, right? So you can talk to the children then about plant respiration and what those bubbles are. If you don't have a sprouter, you can kind of create one. Take your planter, your soil, plant your bean, and then just put another piece of plastic right on top of it. And then children can still observe the effects, and hopefully that will help your seeds germinate a little bit faster. And as we know, for young children, in order to keep their interest, we do want things probably to go a little bit faster. All right, let's move on to fine motor and sensory. Um, so one thing that you can do is you can create a sticky table. Now you can do this down on a table, but a little while ago, particular Facebook group for early childhood educators, somebody asked a question: how do you use your easel in a creative way, not just for painting? And you said that one of the things that I like to do with my easel is I like to put contact paper on it, sticky side out, and then the children can use various items, in this case seeds, right, to create collages on the easel. Light table works great for this as well. Just cover your light table with the sticky paper, and children can put seeds on, take them off, practicing fine motor while they are designing their collages. You can also pair a bunch of seeds in your sensory table, along with scoops, tongs, containers with different sizes of lids, right? So that the children can practice transferring the objects from one place to another. If you've got that sensory table already set up, right, and you want to turn it into more of a math activity, what you can do is add in some items that might encourage children to use them as math manipulatives. So here I have just a small egg carton for sorting the seeds. This has numbers on it if children want to count the seeds as they drop them into the holes. Just earlier today, one of the children was not really using the ruler. She wasn't measuring the beans, but what she was doing was estimating and then deciding, like, if I want to line up the beans until they hit the number 7, how many beans would that take? And she did it, and I think she counted like 15 beans. And so then we were like, okay, well, if it takes 15 to get to the number 7, how many do you think it will take to get to the number 20? So then we're estimating based on what we already know from the ruler and what we already used, and we estimated 20. We actually made it to 22. So we were comparing and contrasting then our estimate to the actual number. I also had balance out, and two of the children were trying to have a race, a race to see whose side of the balance could be heavier. So they were very quickly filling it and saying, "Oh, mine is lower now. I'm winning now. No, you're winning." And just over and over how fast. Then another child came over and started taking it out, and they were actually okay with that. They said, "Okay, now, Zachary helped yours get lower." So that's one way of using the seeds for math. You can also use the seeds for a little bit of shape or number recognition, so that if you have shape, I'm going to tip this because it's going to be easier for me. You can either use it on their own, right, where the children are forming shapes with their seeds. Mine is on a slant here. I'm going to try to make a circle with my seeds. Or you could already have numbers or shapes written out for the children, where they are then just going to line or fill their shapes with with all of the seeds. And again, they can add on to this, right? Counting and estimating how many does it take to fill each of the shapes. You can also turn that particular idea into a literacy um, idea. I have my name here, Nick. Um, and again, lining the seeds to make the particular letters. Um, Another way to use the seeds for letter practice is you're going to need small seeds for this, not beans. These are chia seeds. A flour mix usually works well. Anything that's kind of like maybe a fine bird seed, grains. And children can use their fingers to write letters or use a stick to make their letters in the tray. And it's okay, if children are just at the mark making stage, that can still be a pre-writing practice of gripping the stick, right, and just making some designs in the seeds. All right. Last thing sometimes we like to do is just do a whole class oral story. So the person holding the seed is the person talking. And they get to tell the story as much as they want and then stop and pass it on to the next person. So I might say, once upon a time, there was a tiny seed that got planted in the ground, but it didn't grow. It was very sad. And then I would pass the seed to the next person. Also a listening activity, right? Because children are going to have to be listening to everything that comes before them to make sure that they are maintaining the consistency of the story. Where's our story going? Who are the characters in the story? Does what I'm saying make sense based on what the person before me said? So we also sometimes like to use our shapes, our seeds, to make pictures. And sometimes what I have the children do, just because it's a little bit easier, is I have them draw their design with Sharpies so that when the glue is on it, it doesn't disappear. Simple shapes work really well. Butterflies, uh, caterpillars or snakes, right? And the reason I like this is because they can then just completely fill one portion of their shape with the glue. And then they're just sprinkling the seeds into the glue, dropping them off. Children can certainly make collages, right, where they're, making a sun or whatever with the glue and then pressing the beads into it. This is a little bit more of a sophisticated fine motor task. So, you can introduce it to the children the way that you think might be easiest for the majority of your children, and the children can adapt it to whatever works best for them. Right? And sometimes you can use glue and seeds without even using paper. Right? You want to remember that pine cones have seeds in them, that we have helicopter seeds, that we have acorns. We have a number of different ways that forms that seeds can take. So you can, use your helicopter seeds to be arms on your pine cone, and children can decorate their pine cones. You can I don't know if this is going to work for me just because things are a little bit wet for me right now, but um, you can use the stick, right, as your paper. Put it down because I can't hold things at the same time, right? And maybe they're making an airplane or a dragonfly. Again, right? Going off the paper makes it a little bit more of a fine motor uh, challenge for the children, needing to hold multiple things at the same time or needing to press and hold until the glue dries, like I need to. So I hope this gave you some ideas when you are planting to also use the seeds for some additional practice throughout what your preschoolers need to learn. I'm sure I have only scratched the surface. I'd love to hear your ideas of some creative ways that you are using seeds to help children practice early childhood skills. Feel free to get in touch with me via Facebook, via Instagram, or simply comment below this video. And then I will see you here next week when we will be talking about how your curriculum is not on Pinterest. I will see you there.